Welcome to another episode of MV on the Move. I'm your host, Nikki Frinney, Vice President of Customer Success at MV Transportation, where every day we're focused on how mobility shapes access, opportunity, and quality of life in the communities we serve. And that's exactly where today's conversation begins. Because for decades, public transit has largely operated on a fixed idea, fixed routes, fixed schedules, fixed expectations. And for many riders, that model works. But for far too many others, it does not. It leaves gaps in access, in reliability, and in opportunity. So, what happens when we challenge that model? What happens when transit becomes flexible, responsive, and truly designed around the way people actually live? We're taking a closer look at Decatur, Illinois, a community that is reimagining what mobility can look like when innovation meets intention. Through microtransit, Decatur is expanding access to jobs, healthcare, education, and essential services, especially for residents who have historically been underserved by traditional systems. And the impact is real. Joining me for this conversation today are two leaders who are helping drive that change. Lacie Elzy, Economic and Community Development Director for the City of Decatur, and Jason Beevis, Vice President of Microtransit Services at MV Transportation. Together, they will share what it takes to implement microtransit successfully, what they're seeing on the ground, and why this model is quickly becoming a critical part of the future of public transportation. Let's get into the conversation. Jason and Lacie, welcome to the podcast. And so, Lacie, tell us a little bit about why the City of Decatur decided to implement microtransit.
Absolutely. So in 2021, after the pandemic happened, we were awarded a grant to do a comprehensive operations analysis here at Decatur Public Transit, the City of Decatur. And our bus routes, our fixed routes, and our on-demand paratransit system had not had any changes in the route system for 30 years.
Wow.
And microtransit was just kind of starting to be a buzzword in the community as communities had changed drastically, after the COVID pandemic. And so when we were going through the comprehensive operations analysis, we really started to look at how could microtransit be utilized here, because our community had changed so much over 30 years, obviously.
How had it changed?
So our community had had a lot of growth in our industrial sector. So we were kind of considered an almost Rust Belt community. But Decatur was really good about keeping our infrastructure intact. And so although there were a lot of businesses that had been lost in the 80s, early 90s, in the 2000s, we were well poised to bring back some of that industry. We're also home to ADM, Caterpillar, Primient. And so today, we've had over $1 billion of economic development in our industrial corridor just in the last 10 years. And we like to say it's not your grandfather's manufacturing these days. Right. So with all of that innovation happening, we wanted to look at transit through an economic development lens. And so
Which a lot of people don't look at transit that way. So that is innovative in itself. And I think it lends also to your background of being in economic development.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to note, too, that in our being such an industry-heavy community, 12 of our 15 largest employers are shift employers. So our traditional fixed route system was just not serving the community in the ways that the community had grown. So being able to look at microtransit and how other communities were using it was really interesting. And as we brought that to the table, we utilized our Metropolitan Planning Organization, DUOTS, which is the Decatur Urbanized Area Transportation Study, as a catalyst for the comprehensive operations analysis. That was a really great tool to have because it brought together regionally leaders regionally. So we had a lot of the surrounding communities. We had representatives from the county, from surrounding communities like Forsyth and Mount Zion, who all, once they kind of heard about microtransit, said this would really work for our community.
That's unique, though.
Yeah.
In a lot of cities, big or small, you can't get everybody on the same page when it comes to transit because a lot of people have different stereotypes about transit. But I think when you talk about it from an economic standpoint, how it is how transit, public transit specifically, is an economic engine in your community, I think it changes the way people view it. Would you agree?
I 100% agree with that. And I think that's the big driver is a lot of the surrounding communities, the smaller villages, they have a lot of people who are aging in place. And then their workforce, a lot of their workforce will drive into Decatur to work at a lot of the factories and industry that is here. And so they all identified transportation as a barrier, but fixed route at those distances didn't fit. It didn't make sense. So this idea of microtransit started to grow and really started to get stakeholder buy-in. And so it was kind of, up and up from there, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Because as I said, a lot of communities don't come together that way. And at Decatur, you all have fixed route, paratransit, and microtransit is your newest addition to mobility. So you guys really are offering a lot of mobility services to your community. How do they all work together? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So fixed route is fixed route, right? Traditional, most people understand that. It's supposed to be where it's supposed to be at the time it's supposed to be
there.
Yes. Paratransit is more for individuals who either cannot cognitively or physically navigate the fixed route system. So that's a more on-demand
You kind of schedule the trips, call in, schedule it where you want to go, what time you want to be picked up, that kind of thing.
Yes. And then microtransit is kind of right in the middle. It's a lot more fluid, on demand. You can book a day of, you can use it to go anywhere in the county. And we had never had that option before. So it's really taken off.
And so RP, when you say it's taking off, when you first planned the system, how many rides did you think you were going to get it at?
So we planned it for 150 rides a day. And now we are averaging over 575 rides a day. Our mayor, it's one of her favorite stories to talk about, because it's a huge success story and it's been a win regionally. This microtransit is the first regional transportation plan that we've ever had, or mode of transportation that we've ever had. Wow. So it's really bringing us together, and like I said before, looking at it through that economic development lens has really brought together all of the government entities. We actually signed intergovernmental agreements, for transit, and that's the first time that we had ever done that. So it's been a really big win for everyone in the community.
That is awesome. Now, how many vehicles do you have that offer the microtransit service?
I think we're at 28 right now.
Okay, almost 30.
Yeah, almost 30, yeah.
That's awesome. That's a big fleet. But what is your annual ridership for your transit system?
Well, for the annual, for all of the transit system, we average about 1 million rides a year.
Okay.
But microtransit, even though we're averaging 575 rides a day, we don't even have a year under our belts.
So when did this microtransit service start?
We launched it in September. Yeah.
Wow.
So.
And you're already seeing, 4 times the ridership that you thought you were going to see.
Yes.
That says a lot about people using transit, that they trust your system, right? And that there was a need. I know that MV Transportation is your contractor. Thank you very much. We appreciate the business. And Jason, you as our Vice President of Microtransit Services was very hands-on with getting this service up and running, or at least getting the city to partner with us to get this service up. Tell us a little bit about how that came about.
Yeah, so the city went out for a procurement and awarded the contract to us, which we're very fortunate to have. We were in a good position because we already operate the fixed route and the paratransit here. We already had a good local knowledge. We had the staff in place who were able to, hit the ground running to get things set up. One of the key things I think that we all got involved with was the rider education piece, which is a really important component of microtransit.
And talk a little bit about rider education. What does that exactly mean?
Well, because, like we've been saying, everybody understands fixed route. It's on a schedule, the bus is going to come, you wait at the stop. But with microtransit, it typically involves requesting the trip through an app. So you need to understand, how to set up an account, how to request a ride, how the service will work. And so it's really important that riders understand how that whole system is going to operate. And so here in Decatur, we did a lot of public outreach. We did sessions in the public library. We went to local churches and other groups and did a lot of flyers and leaflets and education so that people, we help them download the app, and they're in a good place when the service launches to start using it. And of course, we saw that with the dramatic and unexpected numbers
of riders, right?
Riders right at the beginning. So clearly, people knew about the service. That was clearly they were expecting it, and then they knew how to ride it as well.
And I don't think a lot of people realize that MV Transportations offers, in our partnership with our clients, offer that public education. So that is also something that you get when you hire MV. And I think it's very important that people understand that, and they know that we have the ability to actually go out and share with the community what to expect in this new service. So I wanted to make sure that I shared that, because a lot of people don't know that we do that. And then so once the service started, what was MV's role in making sure it was successful?
Yeah, so like with any operation, it was making sure that we had the drivers, they're fully trained, and that we were operating the service day to day, ensuring vehicles are maintained and looked after, that's it. Really. Right. Just making sure we implemented it correctly. I think actually one other thing I think that was important was the software piece as well, which is important to mention. MV introduced the City of Decatur to the new software that we use on the service today, and I think that also played a really key role. MV is software agnostic, so we work with all of the different software providers across the country, and so we're able to recommend the best software for the circumstances, and I think it's proven out here. It has worked incredibly well, the software that we're using, and it's adapted as well so that we can now use it for the paratransit service, which is going to allow more integration between those two services as we go forward. And now we're even considering the same software for the fixed route service, which will then really create a very seamless ecosystem under which the services can then all operate and intermingle, or commingle is a word that's often used, with each other, because they should all be complementing each other. The microtransit service should be helping feed fixed route ridership. The fixed route may feed some people into the microtransit for where it doesn't quite do the final mile of the journey that the rider needs. And then also there's the opportunity that we could use some of the paratransit fleet to help support the microtransit, or vice versa. So you gain efficiencies there as well. But and the key is all being under a single software platform. So
and Lacie, does that kind of make everything run a little more seamlessly because you can see all of your vehicles and where the need is?
Absolutely. It helps with planning, right? And good plans drive strong communities.
Absolutely.
So, and it also gives us that that core data that we need to be able to make good decisions, to understand where capital needs to go. And for instance, like bus stops, so when we can have that stop level ridership data, we can ensure that the front door to the transit systems, which are our bus stops, are where they need to be.
Okay. With paratransit, I understand you have to book your trip far in advance. With microtransit, I can book it same day, which almost sounds like an Uber for transit. Do people kind of see it that way?
Yes, and that's one of the ways that we actually educated the public, because that's an easy way
for them to understand
that. And that was one of the gaps in transit that we had here in the city of Decatur, was we were almost an Uber and Lyft desert. And so we have a local community college. We also have a university, and we had a lot of feedback about that, that there were very limited Uber trips, and that when they could secure an Uber trip, that sometimes it would be anywhere from $15 to $20 one way, So being able to have something like that offered by public transportation that's affordable but also safe and reliable, I think has been very welcomed by the community.
And it sounds like you are introducing transit to people who have never used transit before with microtransit. Can you talk a little bit about maybe and I know it's a new service, so all your data is not there, but you mentioned the college. Do you see a lot more students using microtransit than they would have used fixed route?
Yes, and actually that's one of the public outreaches that we've done is MV has helped be at some of those college sign-up days and things to introduce that. We have a large population of the university comes from the college suburbs, which has a very different transit system than the city. So microtransit being that flexible option, we've definitely seen an uptick in usage.
That's awesome. This sounds like a winning transit system here, right? In the early stages of implementation, how important was partnership between MV and Decatur? How important was that to make sure that it was implemented the way you and your team wanted to see it implemented?
I mean, I think that the partnership was, the catalyst. Had there not been that partnership and that communication, microtransit wouldn't have been implemented as it was. So there has to be constant communication and work and boots on the ground. And I think that definitely happened.
Yeah, I feel like we worked hand in hand together, whether it was on the marketing side, you were there in person, I was there in person, making sure things were happening, but also operationally, very good communication, especially as the service grew so quickly, saying we need more vehicles and here's what we're seeing on the ground, and talking with you guys. So I think it was a really good collaboration between us and continues to be.
As we all know, working in transit, not everybody who controls our budgets are transit friendly. But sometimes you can change the conversation by letting them know that transit really is an economic engine in your community. Shut the transit system down. I love to say this. I've been working in transit for 21 years. Shut the transit system down for one day and watch the domino effect of how it affects businesses and industries of people who have no love for transit, who don't really realize how important transit is to their business. With your economic development background, how have you seen maybe businesses or your chamber of commerce or some of those, business owners really embrace microtransit? Do you have any examples of that?
Oh, absolutely. Our Chamber of Commerce has told us that she has had so many of her business members say that they know that microtransit is working because not only do they see the vans every day, but their employees are being able to get to work. Many of them have introduced studies or surveys that found that transit was a barrier. So Premia actually is a prime example. So we have an agreement with them that all Premia employees, which are 900 actually, can ride our transit system for free, and they reimburse us. And so, and we don't limit it to just to and from work. They can utilize the system wherever. And
see,
so
that's how transit is supposed to work in a community. You guys are doing God's work here as somebody that's been in transit for 20 years, and hearing how it has changed to the communities really embracing transit in that way. And I think it's that Uber model, right? Where you can pick up the phone and actually call a ride that is really helping. For transit agencies that do not offer microtransit, what would you say to them to get them to actually consider implementing it?
I would ask them when the last time they did a ridership analysis was, or a comprehensive operations analysis, and what has the community been saying? What's the feedback that they're getting about their fixed route system? For us, it gave us the ability to realign some of our fixed route system. If you think of a fixed route like a tree, right? Sometimes some tree branches need pruned.
Right.
And being able to do that allowed us to realign those fixed route buses to our main headways to increase frequency, and then to be able to expand into the county and truly create the first regional transportation network here in Macon County. And so I would say think big.
Think big. I like that. What about you, Jason?
I like that. Yeah, tough to follow that. Think big. I need a catchphrase as well. No, I would say, talk to us, I guess, would be the simple thing. That people have got ideas about microtransit. They may misunderstand it, but also they may be interested in trying it but not sure how to start. And so that's where I think we can come in and we can work with them and give them ideas and do analysis of their system and get them to think about it, and we can come up with a plan. We can help them with the funding, and we can really make it a very easy process for them. So yeah, talk to us, and we could definitely help.
I love that. So much like Uber was a disruptor to the taxi industry, do you all feel like microtransit is a disruptor in a good way to transit?
I do. I think that it's allowed people to think outside the box with transit, right? And I think sometimes public transportation gets stereotyped, and Uber and Lyft were kind of, like you said, that disruptor, right? And microtransit has been that disruptor for us in a good way, where it allows people who may have never wanted to ride the fixed bus or have the ability to ride the fixed bus if they're too far off the network to be able to utilize this and say, wow, that's really a great option.
So you talked a little bit about you all maybe expanding. You would love to see the transit agency expand its hours of service just to accommodate all of those different needs that people have. Do you see that in the long term? No, we're not even a year in and we're already talking about expansion. That tells you how successful it is. But do you see that in the long term, maybe being able to?
Absolutely. That's been in our long-term plan, to be able to expand, to not only capture, right, some of those additional shift employees that need to get to and from work, but like you said, be able to navigate people safely around who are out at night.
And you talked about you mentioned technology. How much technology does MV offer in microtransit to make it a success, right? What different types of technology are we using to help Decatur with their microtransit service?
The primary technology is the scheduling and dispatch technology. That also comes with the rider app and a driver app. So that's the kind of key platform. You know, that tells the driver where they need to go for their next pickup, gives them the turn-by-turn directions. The rider app allows the rider to request their ride, cancel a ride, plan their journey, and then obviously the administration platform allows our dispatchers to see where the vehicles are, schedule trips on behalf of riders who do call up, because in terms of the equity piece, you know, it's important to recognize not everybody may have access to a smartphone or want to use a smartphone, so they need to be able to call up. I think the other aspect of technology that we use is our data analytics platform, and that helps us to analyze the data and then, you know, come up with different recommendations if the service needs adjusting. And that's the thing with microtransit, is it is not a static service. You know, microtransit should not look the same one year as it looks the next year. It should adapt, you know, based on ridership patterns and behaviors and things that you see.
So the technology is constantly allowing us to see patterns, right? If more people are going to this location, then maybe we increase the number of vehicles or the frequency of going there. I'm not in operations. I may be saying something that doesn't make sense, but is that's
the kind of
pretty
thing.
accurate?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're looking at ridership patterns. You're looking, you know, if you see, for example, that a lot of riders, and we were talking again about this, you know, go into a particular destination. You know, we can see top destinations. You know, maybe it's time to adapt the service and make it more like a shuttle, because the ridership's so frequent that you maybe need a larger vehicle and it becomes a shuttle. And I was saying to Lacie before that that's where I see microtransit is one of its success measures could be that you've introduced so many new people into the system that actually you can put on a fixed route again, or a shuttle service again. You know, microtransit shouldn't be about replacing fixed route. Yeah, it should complement and exactly.
I love that you said that, because I don't think a lot of people realize when you said, you know, there's so many people going to this top destination. Now we may need to either reintroduce a fixed route or introduce a shuttle, which again gives you another mode of transportation that adds to your service. So I really like the fluidity of what microtransit can do. Do you agree?
I 100% agree.
Okay. And so looking beyond Decatur, what advice would you all give other communities considering microtransit as part of their transit strategy?
So it's a little bit like we said before. I think the main thing is to get some expert advice. In the case of Decatur, you know, they got some consultants in who came up with a very comprehensive analysis and operational plan. And that's great. It's also something MV can offer as well. But yeah, the key is really, microtransit doesn't work everywhere in
Right.
every single situation. I think it's really important to understand that if you have a really high frequency, high volume fixed route service that's carrying 70 people every 15 minutes,
Right.
you're not going to be able to replace that with a microtransit service. It doesn't make sense. So it's really important that, you have that analysis, get the studies done, and see whether there is a place for microtransit in your system. And if there is, then that's where we can come in and help design a service and then operationalize that into reality.
As a microtransit expert, I'm putting you on the spot, colleague.
Okay.
As a microtransit expert, where do you see microtransit going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it will continue to expand because it is a service that is leveraging new technologies that didn't exist 10, 15 years ago. Smartphones were in their infancy.
Right.
So it will continue to grow and expand. That flexibility that it offers means it will become very popular.
Well, you guys are doing a great job here, and we absolutely enjoy being your partner. And I look forward to working with you more. But to close, if there's one takeaway you hope listeners remember from Decatur's experience in microtransit, what would that be?
I would say to try it. We talked about doing the pilots, right? And that there's so much that you can learn, and that, it may just go that you planned it too well. So
I like that.
Yeah, and I'm going to just kind of say something very similar, that, take that leap of faith with it. I think it's, that's the only way to really try it out and see if it works for you, and find a good partner who can support you, and see how it goes. And I don't think you'll be disappointed.
I love that. Well, thank you both for joining us today. I look forward to continuing to work with you all on microtransit. Guys, if you're watching, definitely, like Jason and Lacie said, try it out. See if it works for your community, and I guarantee that you will have a lot of success. With that, I'll see you on the next episode. Bye, guys.